On May 10, 1941, the Deputy Führer of Nazi Germany flew alone to Scotland, parachuted into the dark, and was captured within hours. He was never a free man again. His wife and 3-year-old son did not even know he was going. What Rudolf Hess did that night filled biographies, films, and conspiracy theories for 80 years. What happened to the family he left behind is the story almost no one tells, and it was brutal in a way that took decades to finish. The night the name turned dangerous. On the evening of May 10, 1941, Ilse Hess was in Munich when she learned her husband had flown to Scotland. She was 40 years old. Their son, Wolf Rüdiger, nicknamed Buzz, was 3. Rudolf Hess had taken off alone from the Augsburg-Hounstetten airfield in a Messerschmitt Bf-110, intending to negotiate peace with Britain on a mission no one had authorized. His parachute came down near Eaglesham, and by the time British forces reached him, Berlin was already scrambling to contain the damage. Within 48 hours, the regime denounced him as mentally ill, erased his position as Deputy Führer, and left Ilse the wife of a man the state no longer recognized. The husband was still alive. The marriage, in every sense the regime understood, was finished. She learned the details in fragments, from contradictory official statements and party whispers, and she understood quickly that the Hess name had stopped being protection and become a liability. She packed what she could and moved with the boy to the family's country house at Bad Oberdorf, a spa village in the Allgäu Alps near Hindelang. The decision was part practical and part political. Munich was exposed to Allied bombing, and with her husband publicly disowned, the family name offered nothing. She lived quietly there for the rest of the war, while Rudolf was held in British custody at secure locations, most notably Mayndiff Court in Wales. For those years, she saw her husband only through photographs, a marriage conducted entirely through paper and silence, while the war that he had tried to end on his own terms ground on without him. The wives who were arrested too. When Germany surrendered in May 1945, Hess was transferred to Nuremberg for trial before the International Military Tribunal. On October 1, 1946, the tribunal convicted him of crimes against peace and conspiracy. 12 of his co-defendants were sentenced to death. Hess was sentenced to life imprisonment, but the punishment did not stop at the dock. On the 3rd of June 1947, Ilse was arrested along with all the wives of the Nuremberg defendants and sent to the internment camp at Augsburg-Göggingen. Wolf Rüdiger, now 9, was sent to live with an aunt. He attended school under a name his teachers recognized and his classmates whispered about. The boy whose godfather had been Adolf Hitler was now the son of a Nuremberg prisoner, growing up in a country that wanted to forget both his father and him. A denazification tribunal classified Ilse as a follower under Group 3, sympathetic to Nazi ideology but not actively criminal, and released her on March 24, 1948. Mother and son were reunited in the Allgäu. The man at the center of their lives was now behind 4 power walls, and he had made it clear he did not want them to come. 28 years of refused visits. On the 18th of July, 1947, Hess was transferred with 6 other convicted men to Spandau Prison in the British sector of West Berlin, administered jointly by the United States, Britain, France, and the Soviet Union. There, he made a choice that defined his family's next 3 decades. He refused to let them visit. The refusal was deliberate. He told them Spandau's conditions were not fit for his wife to see, and for 28 years, he held to it. Each inmate was allowed 4 sheets of paper per month for correspondence. Hess used the paper. The visits he turned down. So Ilse built a life around the absence. In 1952, she published her correspondence with him as a book through Druffel Verlag, a far-right publisher that specialized in the literature of former Nazis and their sympathizers, presenting her husband as a loving man wrongly imprisoned for a peace mission. An English edition followed in 1954. In 1955, she opened a guest house in Galenberg, a small district of Bad Hindelang, and ran it for years, receiving ordinary holidaymakers alongside far-right sympathizers who wrote to her about her husband's case. Among her long-term correspondents was Winifred Wagner, the former Bayreuth Festival director who had been close to Hitler and never renounced that loyalty. The son who made the campaign his life. Wolf Rüdiger grew up against this backdrop. He enrolled at the Technical University of Munich in the mid-1950s, qualified as an architect in 1961, built a private practice, and started a family with his wife, Andrea. He tried to keep his professional work separate from his father's name, a line that would not hold. On October 1, 1966, Albert Speer and Baldur von Schirach were released from Spandau after completing their 20-year sentences. Rudolf Hess was left alone. The 600-cell prison continued to operate for its single inmate at an annual cost of 800,000 Deutschmarks. In 1967, Wolf Rüdiger began a formal public campaign for his father's release. He gave interviews to the Western press, lobbied politicians, and argued that a man in his 70s in solitary confinement had served his sentence several times over. Ilse filed an application with the European Commission of Human Rights. The British, French, and American governments showed signs of sympathy. The Soviet Union blocked every proposal. Spandau's existence in the western sector gave Moscow a political foothold in the city, and they were not surrendering it for one aging prisoner. By 1969, the family had campaigned for 2 years without once being allowed in the room with the man they were fighting for. A reunion across a wooden barrier. In December 1969, Rudolf Hess was admitted to the British military hospital in West Berlin with a perforated ulcer. He was 75, in severe pain, and for the first time since May 1941, he agreed to let his family come. Ilse, now 69, walked into the room with Wolf Rüdiger, who was 32. The father he remembered was a photograph. The man in the bed was 28 years older than the one who had climbed into the Messerschmitt at Augsburg. After he recovered, Hess permitted regular visits for the first time, but the routine was severe. Family members were allowed 30 minutes a month, separated from him by a chest-high partition, with no physical contact, a guard standing throughout, and topics monitored. What should have been a reunion after decades was a conversation across a wooden barrier under 4-power supervision. Andrea brought photographs and small films of the couple's 3 children, which Hess studied closely. The grandchildren were not permitted to visit together. The cell block allowed too few visitors at once, and Wolf Rüdiger later told reporters that his father had wanted to hold the children but would never have been allowed to. A death no one in the family accepted. Wolf Rüdiger turned the campaign into a second profession, giving press conferences in Munich, writing to heads of state, and using every anniversary to press for release. In 1974, as Hess's 80th birthday approached, U.S. President Richard Nixon expressed private support for release on humanitarian grounds. British Foreign Office files later declassified in 2007 show London had backed release for years. Every attempt hit the same wall. Because Spandau was administered by all 4 powers, one Soviet veto was enough. On April 26, 1984, Hess marked his 90th birthday inside Spandau. 50 well-wishers gathered outside the red brick walls with flowers, and Moscow said no again. Then, on the 17th of August 1987, Hess was found dead in a summer house set up in the prison garden as a reading room. He was 93. An electrical extension cable had been strung over a window latch, and a short note addressed to his family was found in his pocket, thanking them for all they had done. He was pronounced dead at the British Military Hospital at 4:10 p.m. Spandau's only prisoner was gone, and his family had one last fight left. The fight that outlived the man. Within days, Wolf Rüdiger rejected the official account. He and family lawyer Alfred Seidel, who had defended Hess at Nuremberg, argued that a 93-year-old man too frail to tie his own shoes could not have hanged himself with an extension cable. On August 21, 1987, Seidel arranged a second autopsy at the Forensic Medicine Institute of the University of Munich, where Professor Wolfgang Spann found injuries he considered consistent with strangulation rather than the partial hanging described by the British pathologist, though Spann himself stopped short of claiming a third party was involved. The Four Powers Authority ruled the death a suicide on September 17, 1987. Spandau was demolished within weeks, its rubble crushed and scattered in the North Sea specifically to keep the site from becoming a neo-Nazi shrine. Hess was first buried at an undisclosed location, then reinterred on March 17, 1988 at the family plot in the Lutheran cemetery in Wunsiedel, under a gravestone carrying the family motto, Ich hab's gewagt, I have dared. Wolf Rüdiger spent the rest of his life arguing his father had been murdered by British intelligence, writing 3 books advancing the theory, and heading a memorial society that operated at the edge of Germany's organized far right. He rejected the neo-Nazi label for himself, but its annual gatherings drew exactly the audience his books were written for. In 2007, 6 years after his own death, declassified British files showed the opposite of everything he had campaigned on. London had pushed for release for years, and the Soviets had blocked it. The murder plot he had spent 4 decades constructing had no documentary foundation at all. Ilse Hess died in Munich on September 7, 1995, at the age of 95 and was buried beside her husband at Wunsiedel. Wolf Rüdiger died of a stroke in a Munich hospital on October 24, 2001, aged 63, survived by Andrea and their 3 children. By then, the Wunsiedel grave had become Germany's most visited neo-Nazi pilgrimage site, drawing thousands of marchers each August on the anniversary of Hess's death. In 2005, the Bundestag amended the incitement law specifically to ban the marches. The parish council refused to renew the grave's lease when it expired in 2011, and after a legal challenge by Hess's granddaughter, the family agreed. On July 20th, 2011, the grave was opened at dawn, the remains cremated, the ashes scattered at sea, and the gravestone destroyed. In 2019, DNA testing by researchers at the University of Salzburg confirmed with 99.99% certainty that the Spandau prisoner had been Rudolf Hess, closing the one conspiracy his son never wrote a book about. This is the weight a name can carry. A wife interned, a son consumed, a marriage spent across paper and partitions, and a grave the country finally had to erase. The brutality was never a single execution. It was 3 lives, bent around one man's choice on one night in May, and a country that could only find peace by scattering what was left of him into the sea.